What is a Ponzi scheme? Penguin wants fish, but Penguin doesn't want to spend all day shivering near a hole in the ice waiting for a bite. Penguin wants many fish, and Penguin wants them now. Charles is a penguin. Charles looks like every other penguin, but Charles has a secret. One day, Charles tells his friends he found a special, magical ice hole. He says this hole is different. If you drop one sardine into this hole today, the magical currents of the deep ocean will bring you 2 sardines tomorrow. It sounds like a miracle. It sounds like the future of fishing. Penguin A is skeptical. Penguin A worked hard for his 1 sardine, but he watches Charles. The next day, Charles slides over to Penguin A and hands him 2 fat, juicy sardines. Penguin A is stunned. He didn't have to fish. He didn't have to freeze his flippers. He just waited. Word spreads fast in the colony. If Charles has the magical hole, every penguin wants in. But here is the truth. There is no magical ice hole. Charles is a liar. Charles doesn't even know how to fish. Charles is just a penguin with a very organized bucket system. When Penguin A gave Charles 1 sardine, Charles didn't plant it or invest it. He just put it in his bucket. Then Penguin B and Penguin C, hearing the rumors, came to Charles and gave him their sardines too. Charles took the sardine from Penguin B and gave it to Penguin A. Penguin A thinks he made a 100% profit. He thinks he's a genius investor. In reality, he just ate Penguin B's lunch. This is the heart of a Ponzi scheme. It is a giant game of pass the fish where the last penguin to arrive loses everything. A Ponzi scheme isn't about creating wealth. It's about moving it around until someone notices the bucket is actually empty. Charles needs a constant stream of new penguins. If the new penguins stop arriving with fresh sardines, Charles can't pay the old penguins. And when penguins don't get their promised sardines, they start asking questions. They start looking into the magical ice hole, and all they find is cold, dark water. Why do penguins fall for this? Fear of missing out. FOMO. Penguins see other penguins getting fat and lazy while they are still working. Penguin thinks, if I don't give my fish to Charles now, I will be the only poor bird on the iceberg. Herd behavior is a powerful thing. If 10 penguins are running toward Charles with their buckets, the 11th penguin will follow them even if he doesn't know why. Charles also uses social proof. He targets the most respected penguins in the colony first. If the elder penguin says Charles is a visionary, who are you to disagree? You trust the elder. You trust the system. But the system is just a circle of theft. Let's talk about the pioneer of this game, Charles Ponzi. He didn't use fish. He used international reply coupons for stamps. He promised people a 50% profit in 45 days. In 1920, that was like promising a penguin a private island with a heated pool. People went crazy. They gave him millions. He lived like a king for a few months, buying the best suits and the best canes. He was the main penguin. But he wasn't buying stamps. He was just taking money from the New York Penguins to pay the Boston Penguins. The math of a Ponzi scheme is a death sentence. It requires exponential growth. If Charles promises to double every fish, he needs 2 new penguins for every 1 penguin he already has. Then he needs 4, then 8, then 16. Pretty soon, he needs more penguins than there are in the entire Antarctic. And that's when the ice starts to crack. Most Ponzi schemes have a honeymoon phase. This is when everyone is happy. Charles is happy because his bucket is overflowing. The early penguins are happy because they are getting free fish. They tell their cousins, they tell their neighbors. They even reinvest their winnings, giving the fish back to Charles so he can double them again. This is Charles's favorite part. He doesn't even have to move the fish anymore. He just writes a number on a piece of ice and tells the penguin he's rich. But a sardine on a piece of paper isn't a sardine you can eat. It's a phantom fish. It's a lie. Investors think they are looking at a growing bank account, They think they are building a legacy, but a Ponzi scheme is just a countdown. Every fish Charles pays out is a fish he doesn't actually have. He is digging a hole in the snow to fill a hole in the ice. Eventually, the ground becomes too thin to stand on. When a Ponzi scheme collapses, it doesn't just stop, it explodes, because everyone tries to get their fish back at the same time, but the sardines are gone. Charles ate some, Charles used some to buy a fancy ice mansion, and the rest were given to the penguins who left the party early. The penguins left holding the empty buckets. They are the ones who paid for the whole show. This is how the game is played. It's simple, it's effective, and it has been happening since before penguins even knew what a leaf was. But the biggest one was yet to come. A man named Bernie Madoff was about to show the world how to build an iceberg out of thin air. Bernie Madoff was the ultimate penguin. He wasn't some fish thief hiding in a dark alley. He was the chairman of the NASDAQ. He was the bird other birds looked up to when they wanted to know where the best currents were. Bernie didn't just have a bucket. He had a massive, glittering ice fortress built on decades of trust. For over 20 years, he promised steady, consistent returns. Not doubling your fish overnight, that's too obvious. Bernie promised a nice, reliable 10% more fish every single year, no matter if the ocean was freezing over or if the sardines were jumping into the boats. He was so consistent, it was boring. And in finance, boring looks like safety. High-profile penguins, charities, and even other banks practically begged Bernie to take their sardines. But Bernie's ice fortress was hollow. Behind the fancy office and the computer screens, there was no trading, there was no investing, there was just a very large, very secret bucket. When a penguin wanted to withdraw their sardines to buy a new igloo, Bernie just reached into the bucket and handed them the sardines that a different penguin had deposited 5 minutes ago. Because everyone trusted Bernie, they didn't all ask for their fish at once. This allowed the game to last for decades. It was the longest pass-the-fish game in history. But then came the winter of 2008. The global ocean started to freeze. Every penguin got scared. They didn't want to invest anymore. They wanted their fish back. They all ran to Bernie's fortress at the same time. Bernie needed 7 billion sardines to pay everyone back. He looked into his bucket. There were no sardines. There were only crumbs and the smell of old salt water. Bernie had to tell his sons the truth. The fortress melted instantly. Thousands of penguins lost everything. Their retirement fish, their children's education fish, gone. Bernie went to an ice cage for 150 years. The lesson? If a penguin looks too perfect to be true, he's probably eating your lunch behind your back. So how do you spot a penguin like Charles or Bernie before your bucket is empty? First, look for the magic hole promise. If the returns are high, consistent, and don't care about the market, it's a trap. Real fishing is messy. Some days you catch 10, some days you catch 0. If a penguin says he catches exactly 10 sardines every single day, even during a hurricane, he is lying. Second, look at the transparency. If you ask Charles how the magical hole works and he says, "It's too complicated for your small penguin brain," or "It's a secret trade strategy, hold on to your fish." Legitimate investment isn't a magic trick. If they can't explain it simply, they are hiding the fact that there is nothing to explain. Third, the pressure. Ponzi penguins hate it when you wait. They want your fish now. They tell you the magical hole is closing soon. They tell you that Penguin B is already getting rich and you are being left behind. This artificial scarcity is designed to shut off your brain and turn on your greed. A real investment doesn't disappear if you take a day to think about it. But the biggest red flag is the source of the fish. In a real economy, a company makes money by selling a product or providing a service. They catch fish and sell them. In a Ponzi scheme, the product is just more penguins. If the only way the business stays alive is by recruiting more birds to join the colony, you aren't an investor. You are the meal. Modern Ponzi schemes have traded ice holes for crypto wallets and passive income apps. They use fancy words like algorithm, decentralized, and yield farming to confuse you. But underneath the technology, it's the same old bucket. They take the new penguin's Bitcoin to pay the old penguin's interest. It works until the hype dies, and the hype always dies. When the music stops and the ice cracks, don't be the bird standing there with an empty bucket. Remember, there are no magical holes in the ocean. There is only work, risk, and time. If you want more fish, you have to actually go fishing. Or you can give your sardines to a bird like Charles and hope he's a fast swimmer. Because when the bucket is empty, Charles won't be there to share the hunger with you. He'll be halfway to a warmer climate, leaving you alone in the cold. Keep your fish close and your eyes closer. Waddle on.